Welcome back to Big Mouth and welcome to the Big Mouth Daily Live Part 2. Yes, I had to set up another stream because my internet switched off quickly and back on. So I think that stream went dead. I wasn't sure if it was still alive. So I decided to finish the rest of today's Big Mouth Daily Live with a second stream. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to comment there while I'm reading the articles because the Big Mouth Daily Live is all about giving you lot updates on entertainment headlines and news and reading out articles and think pieces. And that's what we do on the Big Mouth Daily. Of course, our main points are about DC, but when there's not big DCEU live action DC or comic book DC news or Marvel or blockbuster movies, we talk about other stuff. So welcome to the Big Mouth Daily Live, and we continue with the next article. Remember, you can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. Right. Why Thor couldn't prevent Frigga's death in Endgame. Considering new revelations in Loki episode 1, perhaps it really was impossible for Thor to save his mother Frigga during Avengers Endgame. By Zach Krujnak, I can't pronounce that, of Screen Rant, which I can pronounce. Considering new revelations in Loki episode 1, perhaps it really was impossible for Thor to save his mother Frigga during the Avengers Endgame. The Queen of Asgard, played by Rene Russo, was a relatively early MCU casualty, dying at the hands of Malekith while protecting Jane Foster in Thor: Dark of the World. However, during Avengers Endgame time heist sequence in which a ragtag group of Avengers ventured into the plot of the MCU's previous films, including Thor: The Dark World, Frigga made an unexpected return. What's more, a time-displaced Thor travelled back in time to the very day his mother was killed, adding to his own ample inner turmoil. At one point in their conversation, Thor tries to tell his mother about the future, but she cuts him off. You're here to repair your future, not mine. But where are we? You're here to repair your future, not mine, she says. But this is about your future. Thor responds before Frigga counters, and it's none of my business. The scene from Avengers Endgame gave Thor and Frigga's relationship much needed closure, while also showing Frigga's wisdom that most futures are immutable. Yet clearly she doesn't think all futures are set in stone. It has always been a little strange that Frigga seems pretty unconcerned with the ramifications that could come from future Thor and his fellow Avengers digging around various timelines to collect Infinity Stones. This attitude is echoed by Judge Ramona Renslayer in Loki episode 1's court scene, when the God of Mischief wonders why his Tesseract enabled escape from the events of Avengers Endgame led to the Time Variance Authority's interference, while the hero's time meddling remains unchecked. Renslayer explains that in accordance with the sacred timeline, the time heist was always meant to happen. If, as Loki episode 1 explains, the TVA is really responsible for maintaining the proper timeline, it makes sense that Frigga's death really was unavoidable. Considering how the tragic event shaped Thor's life and hero's journey, it is possible that had the future Thor somehow saved her during the time heist, the TVA would have swooped in to put that timeline back on track. In truth, Frigga's death in Thor: The Dark World has always veered into dangerously close to the Phrygian trope, on all too common narrative phenomenon in which female characters are killed or depowered. Oh my God. And I knew you were going to fucking say it before you said it. So now we can't depower females. Now no female character must ever die. You people are crazy. Men die. Women die. People of color die. Babies die. What? You're mad. You're literally mad. I'm sorry, you're nuts. Bobcat, hey Mickey, hey Bobcat, we're back. It's all common narrative phenomenon in which female characters are killed or depowered in order to motivate male heroes. Oh my God, this is pathetic. This is pathetic. These people are insane. Who lets them loose? Who lets them out of their cage? They're nuts. However, if this is a larger picture that Frigga was somehow aware of the existence of a sacred timeline and the devastation that could come if the events within the MCU MCU ventured too far from it. It could ultimately help give Frigga's death greater agency and purpose, because someone dying to create more of a male hero isn't allowed, is it? You're nuts. Please go and get help. You shouldn't be working in mainstream journalism. People don't want to hear your nonsense. We just want entertainment and escapism. It's not just men, and it's women who are fed up of you as well. No woman who sees the crap you say understands what kind of women that you know. You are talking about maybe alien women that we've never met before, but the kind of women, you want women to be immortal. You want women to lead everything. You want minorities to lead everything. And you want to literally delete white men from everything. You need help because you hate a group of people. You are just as bad as the far right. Let's be absolutely clear about that. Bobcat, in the time you were gone, I've given myself a splint. Oh dear. Frigga's more complete understanding of the multiverse. I think the TVA thought that was destiny. The existence of multiple timelines is all the more likely because she was canonically raised by witches. The MCU has increasingly linked its multiverse with sorcery. First with Doctor Strange in Avengers Infinity War, when he peeked into millions of alternate realities, and later with Scarlet Witch, who has hinted to be Nexus being in WandaVision. Since two magic wielders will come together in the conspicuously titled Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, it seems as though Loki will help establish the rules when it comes to playing in Marvel's new universe traveling sandbox. It will be immensely satisfying to learn that Frigga, a long-living sorceress with deep knowledge of the multi-universe, was privy to the inner workings of the multiverse all along. Why? Because she's a woman, you nut job. Loki, episode 1, has set up new and lofty questions concerning alternate universes and the motivations of TVA's mysterious timekeepers. However, since the first chapter took time to revisit the day of Frigga's death, an event already retrodden in Avengers Endgame, it makes one wonder if it's possible that more information will come to light in regards to her heroic sacrifice. Time will tell. No, she's an irrelevant fucking character. She's great. That death made me cry. When I saw Loki's reaction in the first episode of Loki to her death, it made me cry. But that's it. That's it. You nut job. You absolute nut job. Leave us alone. I'm so fed up of big companies all over the world listening to you nut jobs while children in the third world starve, while people remain homeless, and your number one issue is minority representation and women. That's all you care about. You don't care about human life. You don't value human life. You think this is more important. Santan Pujari, DCEU is lacking continuity. WB should stick to Snyderverse instead of throwing random ass movies. They're not doing that. That's a miscommunication, Sunhuff. They are creating a multiverse strategy where everything will be interconnected, as you know, of course. So, yeah, I was very upset by this article. Pathetic. But we should come to get used to these nut jobs. Please don't listen to them. So, Bobcat, so I was saying I had one idea about Robert Pattinson's Batman being the emo Bruce Wayne and talking about he was in Twilight. Bobcat also playing into the not working out joke where Matt Reeves comes into Pattinson's room and tells him he has to work out. And Pattinson says, "Shut up, I'm writing poetry." Yeah, that's pretty light and good. Right, every upcoming Black Panther movie and show. The Black Panther franchise is set to be key part of the MCU's future. Here's every Black Panther movie and Disney Plus TV show in development by Cooper Hood of Screen Rant. Here's every upcoming Black Panther movie and TV show in Marvel Cinematic Universe. When Chadwick Boseman's T'Challa appeared in Captain America Civil War, it didn't take long for audiences to immediately gravitate towards him. Black Panther's debut was highly anticipated by comic fans. His role and Boseman's performance made audiences around the world eager to see more of him, especially as the film ended with a tease of Wakanda, the technologically advanced African nation he rules. Now, it's interesting, actually, because Chadwick Boseman isn't how do you call it? It's not an inclusion hire. It's basically a DNA hire. Now, I know this. Now, of course, Chadwick Boseman, God rest his soul, and I'm very sad that he died. He was a great pick, and I'm not saying he's not, but he was definitely not a diversity hire. Just because you see someone is black or Asian, it doesn't mean they're a diversity hire. They have the same DNA and background of the culture that dominates Hollywood, and they're the ones that normally get employed. And basically, that's what you have to remember. So just because a black man's been hired, it doesn't mean it's a diversity hire. If a really talented black person came into the gates of Hollywood and wanted to be Black Panther, he wouldn't get it because Boseman was already chosen. This was chosen years ago. And as I say, it's a DNA hire, and it's such a blatant DNA hire. And they think we're so stupid and so blind, we can't see that. But he was a great casting. He did do a good job. And I'm sorry that he lost his battle with cancer or leukemia, I think. Here's every upcoming Black Panther movie and TV show in Marvel Cinematic Universe. When Chadwick Boseman's T'Challa appeared in Captain America Civil War, it didn't take long for audiences to immediately gravitate towards him. Black Panther's debut was highly anticipated by comic fans. His role and Boseman's performance made audiences around the world eager to see more of him, especially as the film ended with a teaser of Wakanda, the technologically advanced African nation he rules. 2 years after his MCU debut, Marvel Studios released Black Panther in theaters and delivered one of its best films to date. Director Ryan Coogler fleshed out the world of Wakanda and brought multiple fully developed characters to the screen as the MCU's first solo movie led by a person of color. Of course, they're going to mention that because we can't see he's a person of color, can we? The cultural importance of Black Panther, here we go, went hand in hand with the film's incredible success. The movie became a worldwide phenomenon, earning $1.3 billion at the box office and receiving multiple Oscar nominations, not one for Best Actor for Boseman, by the way, including one for Best Picture and winning 3 of the awards, a first for the MCU, 3 of the lesser awards. Marvel Studios initially didn't rush getting to Black Panther franchise to make sure Ryan Coogler stayed involved. Once he agreed to direct the sequel, plans for the rest of this corner of the MCU have continued to grow. Marvel Studios is now developing multiple movies and TV shows connected to the Black Panther franchise. I'm not sure if this is a good idea. We'll soon find out. The long-awaited Black Panther sequel, A Black Panther Wakanda Forever, was officially announced in 2019, with Ryan Coogler returning to write and direct. Story details are slim, and the original plan for the movie has changed following the passing of Chadwick Boseman. Marvel has confirmed they won't recast T'Challa or digitally recreate Boseman for Black Panther 2. Without Boseman's Black Panther, the sequel's cast contains Letitia Wright Shuri, Winston Duke Mabuku, Denari Garura Okai, Angela Bassett Ramonda, Lupita Nyong'o, Nakia, and Martin Freeman Everett Ross. Tenoch Huerta is reportedly playing one of the villains. Black Panther Wakanda Forever is scheduled to release exclusively in theaters on July the 8th, 2022. The Okoye spin-off. Marvel Studios is reportedly working on a Black Panther spin-off Disney Plus show centered around Danai Gurira's Okoye. The series is set to focus on Okoye's origin. There aren't any other details on the series so far, but this will make it it's a prequel to Black Panther. It presumably will feature a strong presence from the Dora Milaje, as it can show how Okoye rose through their ranks to become their leader. Other Dora Milaje members, such as Florence Kazumba's Ayo, could return in the series potentially, as could Daniel Kaluuya's I can't say that word, W'Kabi. If his romance with Okoye is part of the story, it is unknown when the Okoye series will release on Disney+. Ryan Coogler's Black Panther spin-off. In addition to his work on Black Panther 2, Ryan Coogler is developing a Black Panther spin-off show for Disney+. The series reportedly focuses on the Kingdom of Wakanda. There are no actors from the franchise currently attached to appear, although several are expected to ultimately be included. It is not confirmed when the show takes place in relation to Black Panther Wakanda Forever, as it could show what Wakanda was like during the blip or continue the franchise's story after the sequel. The Black Panther spin-off does not have an expected release date on Disney+. Very interesting. So they're really going for it with Black Panther. Will it work? It should do, but you never know. People may deem, without Boseman, should you still be doing this? But there is actually a big universe of Black Panther characters, and of course Wakanda is a very interesting place to focus the story on as well. I'm looking forward to it, and I think it's great. Well, we've got a couple more articles left. I think we've got one now, two there. So let's go to the next one. So we've got about 10 minutes left. Let me see if I can do these articles. What the unmade Brendan Fraser, The Mummy 4, would have been about. Before attempting the dark universe with Tom Cruise's reboot, The Disaster, Universal planned on Mummy 4 with Brendan Fraser fighting mummies in South America. Personally, I think this was the better idea. I don't know why they didn't do this. By Murray Ferguson of Screen Rant. Universal failed to kickstart the dark universe with 2017's The Mummy reboot, having previously abandoned plans for Mummy 4 starring Brendan Fraser that promised a more engaging story. With the Mission Impossible movies continuing to thrive at the box office, it's easy to see why Universal brought in Tom Cruise. No, I don't think it is. I don't think it is obvious. Tom Cruise to headline their potential new franchise. However, Cruise is certainly no Fraser, and the reboot was devoid of charm and old school fun that made the movie such a beloved blockbuster. It doesn't have to be like the Fraser movies. It just looked like The Mummy meets Mission Impossible. It was just overstunted because fucking Cruise, I love Tom Cruise, he's one of my favourite actors. Fucking Cruise, he's got such an ego, and he's obsessed with jumping off of things. And that's the problem. This is what happens when you've got a small sausage, you see. You try and ingratiate yourself in other ways. Stop it, Tom. We know you can climb up tall bloody mountains and jump off aeroplanes, but that's no good for a bloody mummy movie. And it didn't work, although Russell Crowe was great in the movie. Anyway, director Stephen Sommers reinvented Universal's classic 1932 The Mummy, offering an Indiana Jones-style adventure that effectively paid homage to its monster movie roots while injecting loads of tongue-in-cheek humour. Released in 1999, the film was an instant box office success, and the 2001 sequel, The Mummy Returns, was swiftly greenlit. While inferior to the original, the second installment was still hugely popular, with a third movie eventually arriving 7 years later, which involved Smallville creators Al Gough and Miles Miller. Unfortunately, it wasn't very successful. The Mummy Tomb of the Dragon Emperor from 2008 is the last audience's story of adventurer Rick O'Connell Fraser before the franchise was rebooted with Cruise. Female mummy Sophia Boutella and a modern-day setting, however, that wasn't always the plan. Universal was once developing a fourth movie that would have seen the O'Connell clan travel to South America, only for a waning interest and a desire for a connected universe to derail the project. Little is known about the proposed fourth entry beyond the premise and working title. The Mummy Rise of the Aztec, according to the film stories, Antonio Banderas was to play the villain. Awesome idea. Continuing an electric roster for undead opponents, following Arnold Vosloo's Imhotep, Dwayne Johnson's Scorpion King, and Jet Li's Dragon Emperor. While the story details are scarce, it's safe bet that there would have been plenty of South American mummies in some form of ancient curse. Fraser was once again led the sequel, accompanied by John Hannah, love John Hannah and Brendan Fraser together, as the only two original cast members to appear in every entry. Meanwhile, Maria Bello and Luke Ford were to reprise their roles of the archaeologist Evelyn and son Alex, having previously replaced Rachel Weisz and Freddie Both for the Tomb of the Dragon Emperor. In fact, both actors were contracted for multiple films. Universal clearly had no intention of ending the franchise, leading to a mild surprise when they ultimately cancelled the sequel. Still, there's no telling how The Mummy 4 would have been received. While Stephen Sommers showed creative flair on the first two movies, Rob Cohen directed Mummy 3 and planned on continuing with the franchise. The return of Bello and Ford may also have proved futile, since neither made a strong impression in their first outing. Rachel Weisz was sorely missed, absolutely, with Tomb of the Dragon Emperor's Evelyn feeling like a completely different character. Bello may have seemed like a worthy replacement in theory, but she and Fraser lacked the same chemistry. Regardless of these factors, external issues intervened alongside the negative reception to the third movie. Universal's other monster reboots, The Wolfman and Dracula Untold, failed to spark interest. And actually, Dracula Untold is a pretty cool movie. So is it not the way they make these movies? Could it be that people are just fucking not interested in these characters? We're not in that era. I mean, I think Snyder could do something with the monster universe. I mean, he would go in such a crazy direction. It could work and it could be interesting. I think you need to turn it upside down on its head, because clearly, as iconic as these monster universe characters are, people this generation are not interested. It's clear it's all about the capes now. With added pressure for a bigger revenue and over eagerness to replicate Marvel with their own shared universe, Universal abandoned the Fraser era movies to start afresh. Tom Cruise's The Mummy was criticised for being a glum retread of earlier, better movies, but The Mummy 4 could have put a new spin on the franchise, I agree. Despite revealing his numerous bodily injuries and difficulty filming the third movie, Fraser has confirmed he would happily return as Rick O'Connell. This may just be wishful thinking, but it's not too late for Universal to revisit their original winning formula. No disrespect to Brendan. He would need to go back to the gym. I love Brendan, and I'm not into body shaming at all, but he's just not in the right shape to do it right now. Have you seen him? Have you seen him in, what's it called, the DC show he's in? I love that DC show, by the way, and he's great. But yeah, he definitely needs to hit the gym, and I think Brendan would agree with me there. But I'd love to see a Mummy 4. I think these are great movies. These are the only ones that have kind of done anything like Indiana Jones has done. And I think Brendan Fraser and the rest of the cast were fantastic, especially in the first two movies, for sure. They're escapism. You don't have to analyse those films. They're just great. Remember when people just used to watch movies and not fucking talk about them? We can't do that these days. We talk about movies more than we watch them. What a show. What a shame. What a shame that is, don't you think? That's what I think anyway. Why Loki really doesn't want to return to the main MCU timeline. The Loki variant with the TVA doesn't want to return to the main MCU timeline, says he can't, and there's a deep emotional reason why, by Anna Dumarog of Screen Rant. At the end of the Loki premiere episode Glorious Purpose, the God of Mischief realised he no longer could return to the main MCU timeline on the surface. This could be read as him no longer wanting to go after learning that no matter what he did, he has always bound to lose in that timeline. Yet there's a deeper and more touching reason for his realisation. Instead of a self-serving decision, his choice to stay with the Time Variance Authority, the TVA, is motivated by his connection to his family. Despite the character's death in Avengers Infinity War, Marvel Studios found a way to continue Loki's story via the events of Avengers Endgame during the hero's time heist. Loki escaped with the Tesseract veering from the proper flow of events and violating the sacred timeline, subsequently finding himself arrested by the TVA. This means that the version of the anti-hero in Loki is pre-redemption, as he has yet to go through the journey that changed him as a person in the main timeline. Nevertheless, the Asgardian's prince learned his ultimate fate thanks to Agent Morbius, M. Morbius, who showed him what the future was like for him in the sacred timeline, ending in his death. The realization stunned Loki and brought him to heel. Instead of his insistence on escaping the TVA, he lost interest in the idea when realizing he can no longer return to the main MCU reality. It seems like an in-character decision, understandable considering that he had just found out his botched alliance with Thanos in the Avengers would spell his death several years later in Infinity War. But more than keeping himself safe, Loki didn't see any reason to go back to that timeline, knowing his whole family would also die. I understand this kind of a fault, but he literally can't go back to that timeline. That's what that dialogue means. That's what I assumed it meant, right? Would also die. First he saw his mother Frigga get murdered in For the Dark World. The shame of learning he led her killers right to her might alone have been enough reason for him to stay with the TVA. Second, the trickster learned of Odin's death in Thor Ragnarok. Despite Odin and Loki's less than ideal relationship, the All-Father acknowledging his love for both his sons before his passing made it more painful. Finally, on the heels of his own end at the hands of Thanos, he was led to believe that Thor had also died when the Asgardian refugee ship exploded. Since Loki's file ended with the explosion, there's no mention of the God of Thunder surviving thanks to the Guardians of the Galaxy's help. Discovering not just his fate, but his family's fate in the sacred timeline was enough to make Loki drop his defenses and finally be honest with Morbius. In the end, the trickster, who was adamant about keeping up an arrogant, flippant front, eventually admitted why is the way he is. Loki explained that he's essentially projecting a ruthless persona by stoking fear in the hopes of regaining control over his life. He was so badly misunderstood, and after the events of the original Thor felt like even more of an outcast. Yet his reaction to their deaths proves that despite his attempts to sabotage Thor and Odin, as well as his cold treatment of Frigga, he loves them. In hindsight, this is what makes Loki an endearing character in the end. His tantrums and hissy fits have been cries for help. He desperately wanted to be seen and appreciated, especially by his family. It didn't help that Odin always pitted his sons against each other, knowing full well that Loki would never be king or even seen as equal. In showing his life, Loki fast-tracked and compressed the character's redemption arc from the Infinity Saga, but that doesn't mean that the God of Mischief is now fully reformed. He's still chaotic and naughty, but since the TVA is hunting down an evil variant of himself, the organization can use some of Loki's mischievous. Yes, Loki will prove himself, and I believe he will replace Agent Morbius in this show. I think Agent Morbius played by, I forgot his name now, but I think Agent Morbius M, or whatever you call him, will die, will sacrifice himself, maybe purposely, and then Loki will take his role. And I think Loki is a big part of the Secret Wars, and I can't wait to see this stuff play out. Well, we're back on Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones 5 set photos revealed Toby Jones' new indie sidekick. Now, I love Toby Jones, and this is Toby Jones. If you don't know who he is, you probably recognize him from the MCU. I think he was in the first Captain America. Great actor. He's been in Doctor Who. He's a great British actor. New set photos from production on the highly anticipated Indiana Jones 5 highlight the famed archaeologist alongside new sidekick actor Toby Jones by Mike Jones of Screen Rant. The latest photos from the set of Indiana Jones 5 have revealed Indy's new sidekick, played by Toby Jones. The fifth installment in the iconic action-adventure franchise has only recently begun filming in the United Kingdom, and so far Indy's creating quite the stir among fans. There's been no shortage of speculation regarding some past photos from the set, with Harrison Ford and series newcomer Mads Mikkelsen also having been spotted off camera. The wait for the new Indiana Jones installment has been a particularly lengthy one, especially since the fifth film was officially confirmed all the way back in 2015. In fact, the film has been in development since 2008, shortly after the time that the somewhat lackluster Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull arrived in theatres. If that's what you think, you can think that. I think Crystal Skull was all right. Originally, Ford had said that he would be part of a fifth indie film if it didn't take too long to develop. At present, the former Star Wars star is 78 years old, a fact that hasn't escaped the attention of Indy's more skeptical fan base. But while Ford might not be the ideal age for the lead in a big-budgeted action-adventure franchise, the most plausible rumour currently circulating among fans is that Indy 5 director James Mangold will use de-aging technology for the film's multiple timelines. In addition to the discussions surrounding just how Indy's latest story will unfold, much attention has also been focused on the film's cast. For the first time since filming on Indiana Jones 5, new photos have emerged showing Toby Jones alongside Ford. The two men can be seen walking on the grounds of what appears to be Barnborough Castle, the location where the production is currently filming. The new photos come courtesy of the Daily Mail and manage to add some new questions to the ongoing mystery behind Indy 5. For starters, Ford can be seen with black dots on his face, a strong assurance that de-aging technology is being used. Previous photos from the Barnborough Castle set had shown a Nazi-era tank, meaning that scenes shot there likely can't take place any later than 1945, when the Second World War came to an end. As for Ford and Jones, the two men appear quite dishevelled, with Ford looking slightly harried and Jones slightly overwhelmed. As any Indiana Jones fan knows, the series has always been particularly fond of pairing Indy up with characters who can act as a counterbalance to his confidence and daring. To that effect, Jones seems to genuinely fit in, looking just like the sort of character who could end up getting in Indy's way and frustrating the fearless archaeologist. Throughout the franchise's history, Indy's best adventures have come whenever Nazis have been involved. Not only that, but each time Nazis have played a part in the narrative, Indy has been forced to escape from their clutches. It's not hard to believe these recent Indiana Jones 5 photos show Indy either escaping from the Nazi-occupied castle or rescuing Toby Jones' character from the said location. So far, the production is giving off some classic Indy vibes, and if this continues for the duration of production, Indiana Jones 5 just might end up succeeding, that elusive mixture of classic Indy and a new take on the beloved series. Who knows? Miracles can happen. Kirk, Manchester United fan, Australia glazes out. Yo, brother, yo, Kirk, good morning to you. Jurassic World 3 director reveals his favourite scene in Dominion. Exclusive. Jurassic World Dominion director Colin Trevorrow reveals his favourite scene of the new movie in this Cretaceous era prologue by Syed Fadullah Hassani. Director Colin Trevorrow has opened up about his favourite scene from Jurassic World Dominion. Based on Michael Crichton's novels, Jurassic Park film franchise began with Steven Spielberg's massively popular movie in 1993 and was followed up by a sequel, The Lost World. Jurassic Park in 1997, Jurassic Park 3 also came out in 2001. Though it had nothing to do with the source material after the third film, Jurassic Park remained in limbo for several years until finally in 2015, director Trevorrow retooled the franchise, launching the first Jurassic World film. Trevorrow's first movie was a box office blockbuster, and its success inspired a sequel, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, which premiered in 2018. Now the Jurassic World trilogy is also drawing to a close, if you say so, with its final installment, Jurassic World Dominion, scheduled to release in 2022. Set 4 years after the events of Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, Dominion will supposedly depict a society where dinosaurs and humans coexist. Fallen Kingdom had ended with the dinosaurs being let out into the wild, the repercussions of which were shown in a follow-up short film called Battle of the Big Rock. So Jurassic Kingdom Dominion will now presumably deal with the challenges arising from a full-blown dinosaur infestation, and it will likely be up to the heroes, played by Chris Pratt, Bryce Dallas Howard, B.D. Wong, to save the day. How they will get about doing that remains a mystery, although they will surely be getting help from the original Jurassic Park trilogy characters. Many details about Jurassic World Dominion are still unclear, but Trevorrow has already started helping fans make sense of what's to come their way. Recently, in his exclusive conversation with Screen Rant ahead of F9's IMAX preview, Trevorrow revealed his favourite scene from Jurassic Park Dominion. The director remarked that he was particularly excited about the movie's 5-minute-long prologue. No surprise there, it's marketing. So that's why they're doing. That's his favourite, which takes fans back to 65 million years into the Cretaceous era, which is exciting, by the way. Trevorrow stressed that the particular sequence isn't just an opening for the film, but it's an origin story that explains what the heroes and the dinosaurs are doing in the present day. You know, for the longest time, this Cretaceous sequence you're seeing is the thing I was most excited about. So the fact that people could get to see this right now in IMAX is pretty thrilling for me. I'm really fired up about it. I'm grateful that Universal and everybody were down with doing it, because it's not just like we're showing the first 5 minutes. We're showing a pretty major piece of what we're doing. Beyond that, just being able to not only to see these characters on screen again, but to be able to really stick the landing with them and understand what they've been doing in this world, what they've learned, how they've changed, all of that, I think fans of the franchise will want to come and see. Along with that, just send them on an adventure. So it's very exciting, isn't it? This Cretaceous era prologue is very ambitious, and I hope we can see it online, because I won't be going to see Fast 9 in the cinemas, because I'm not a fan of Fast 9. Anyway, the prologue in question was screened during the film's first extended preview before the IMAX screenings of F9. Those who have viewed the footage report that the sequence introduces 7 new dinosaurs to the universe of Jurassic World. One of them is the feathered dinosaur, let me say that again, I can never say, Oviraptor, which was discovered only 2 years ago. Previously, a poster offering the first look at the movie also previewed the same era. It showed a mosquito drinking the blood of a Moros intrepidus, hide a reference to the scene where John Hammond revived dinosaurs using fossilized DNA taken from a mosquito. With Trevorrow's comments, the eagerness to view the Cretaceous era set prologue of Jurassic World Dominion grows. All this time, the Jurassic Park and Jurassic World movies have largely dwelt in the present, which, although an interesting alternate reality to explore, doesn't cater to the story's background. But now that the Jurassic World franchise is shutting shop, it's important that the dinosaurs' backstory be fully fleshed out. And the only way to do that is to go back in time by traveling back through time. Jurassic World Dominion may have even found a way to keep the franchise going in a different direction. I think that's the point, isn't it? Very clever. This franchise will run and run. There's no question about that. And our final article for today, it's been a long one today, and we were interrupted by my internet going down, which was very disappointing. So it's about A Quiet Place 2 and its box office. Has already beaten Godzilla vs. Kong at US box office. You mean originality works? That's amazing, isn't it? John Krasinski's sequel film, A Quiet Place Part 2, is dominating at the domestic box office, already outpacing March's release, Godzilla vs. Kong, by Nadia Goffey. By the way, this is not much of a surprise. John Krasinski's A Quiet Place Part 2 is doing impressive numbers at the box office and has even managed to surpass Godzilla vs. Kong. The post-apocalyptic horror film is a sequel to the 2018 critically acclaimed hit, A Quiet Place, which followed a family struggling to survive in a world inhabited by blind monsters attracted to sound. A Quiet Place Part 2 stars Emily Blunt, Krasinski's real-life wife, Millicent Simmons, and Anoa Duke, who all reprise their roles from the first film, and adds Cillian Murphy and Ji-yeon Hunsu to the stellar cast. A Quiet Place Part 2 was delayed due to the pandemic, and Krasinski, like many other filmmakers, have emphasized the importance of waiting for theatres to reopen before he would consider premiering the film. The pandemic lockdown, which forced theatres to close for nearly a year, and some forever, resulted in a mass delay in 2020 and 2021's planned film releases, as well as the humongous financial setback for the film and theatre industry. Plenty of films have gone back and forth between hybrid releases, theatre-only releases and streaming-only releases, with some streaming platforms attempting to bridge the gap, like Disney Plus with Premier Access. You mean HBO Max's day-and-date releases? Didn't mention that. It's all about Disney, isn't it? Anyway, carry on. Reported by Variety, A Quiet Place Part 2, which opened only in theatres in May 28, has set impressive domestic box office numbers for its $61 million budget, outpacing the earlier blockbuster release, Godzilla vs. Kong. A Quiet Place Part 2 is set to have cumulatively grossed over $100 million by the end of this weekend, making it the highest-earning pandemic film release so far. On the other hand, Adam Wingard's Godzilla vs. Kong, which released on March 31st and had a budget of $405.9 million, has yet to cross the $100 million mark in domestic box offices. However, Godzilla vs. Kong has outpaced A Quiet Place Part 2 in global earnings. And this is the problem. This is a misleading headline. What do you think's better? Doing well in America, and they're not talking about it globally, by the way, doing well in America or doing well globally? I think when I'm working in a shop, if I'm working in a shop and I've got 100 million Coca-Colas and everyone comes in and buys them, right? I don't just count the one that's being sold in one shop. I want to count what they've been sold in all of my shops, right? Because I'm still making money, right? But these people are so kind of flag waving. They're obsessed with the domestic box office and they actually think it's more important than the global. The global is what matters. And ultimately, this is just an article trying to smash Warner Brothers over the head, when actually Godzilla versus Kong is actually making more money globally, which is what really matters at the end of the day. Yeah, so has outpaced Quiet Place Part 2 in global earnings. It's important to say that Godzilla vs. Kong was in theatres for longer. At the moment, they've only been out for 2 or 3 weeks or something, so they could catch them up. It's unlikely, but global at the end of the day, for me personally, is the real measure of a movie. A Quiet Place Part 2's earnings are impressive, but it may not keep the crown for 2021. It won't. There are plenty of other pandemic releases slated for the rest of this year that may knock Krasinski's film out the top spot and cause a rise in box office numbers in general. This is particularly true over excitement towards the reopening of theatres, aided and expedited by the increasingly comprehensive rollout of the COVID vaccine, both in the US and in other countries. Box office numbers will likely continue to rise, considered the number of films that were pushed back to 2021. Disney alone is releasing 3 MCU movies by the end of the year, which will more than likely break this current box office record. Quiet Place Part 2's success at the box office over Godzilla vs. Kong domestically, let's not forget, is likely not only due to higher COVID vaccination rates as compared to March, but perhaps also because it embodies the type of movie America wants to see right now. A Quiet Place Part 2 is a movie that centers around family, uses indigenous film techniques, and creates suspense that audiences, especially after the past year, can relate to. Whatever the case, the positive numbers from some of the most recent films show how happy film fanatics are to be getting back to doing what they love most. And also, you journalists and you sites are making money for the movie companies by encouraging people to go back to theatres. I've got no problem with movie theatres. I think it's a great experience. I'm glad they're reopening. It is a great experience. It's the best place to experience movies. But the movie theatre Nazis really wind me up. So I'm happy for A Quiet Place Part 2. It's made a small little bit of success. It's probably as successful as the first one. It's a great movie. Well done, John Krasinski. You're a great guy. Your wife's a great lady. And I'm happy for you. But trying to masquerade this as a better result than Godzilla vs. Kong shows you what kind of unscrupulous people in the media we are dealing with. So that's it for today. Now, I'll be back tonight at 6:30 p.m. UK time for Big Mouth Live, where we'll just be talking and I'll be responding to your comments. If there's a big breaking news story, please, I always like a big breaking news story in the entertainment industry that we can get our teeth round to and discuss and react to opinions about, especially if it's DC. We'll have to wait and see. But I will be back later, 6:30 p.m. UK time. As I said, check your local times to check in. I will post the link on Twitter a couple of hours before I go live as well, so you can't miss a trick. If you're rewatching this, comment down below, like, share, and subscribe. If you've only seen this video, it came in two parts, today's Big Mouth Daily Live, because I was cut off because of no internet. So there is another part to this video. So check that out as well. I am absolutely knackered. I'm going to put the oven on so the chicken can start roasting. And I shall see you tonight, 6:30 p.m. UK time for Big Mouth Live at Movies TV Mag over on Twitter. See you later on. And thank you for your attention. See you later.